Yeah, hi, good morning everyone, and welcome to our Planning Analytics webinar this morning. Next slide, please, Colin. So we've got a webinar this morning, a joint presentation between HAYNE Solutions and IBM. Subject is on IBM Planning Analytics and giving you an introduction to this new product which IBM have brought to the market over the last 15 months. My name is Mark Cracknell. I'm a director of HAYNE Solutions, and I'll be joined by Colin Keneally from IBM, who will be giving the demonstration. Next slide, please. So we've got a very short agenda for today. So we're going to give a very quick overview of HAYNE and who we are. We'll then have a very detailed look at IBM Planning Analytics, and we'll pick up on some summary and questions at the end. As we mentioned before, please feel free to use the chat facility to ask any questions as we progress, and we'll try to pick up those either as we go through the presentation or as we get to the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. So HAYNE Solutions. So we were established in 2009, and we're based in the beautiful Stratford-upon-Avon, although we have consultants throughout the UK, and we have customers in the UK, Ireland, and Europe, so pretty large coverage. Next click, please. We specialise very much in solutions to the Office of Finance. So I come from a background of KPMG, worked as a CFO and as a group controller in industry for about 10 years. So we fully understand all of the issues that the Office of Finance has around things like budgeting, planning and forecasting and consolidation. HAYNE ourselves, we're a leading IBM Premier Business Partner. And we resell license, we consult, we configure applications, install applications, and we help support applications as well. So we can give you an end-to-end solution around the IBM toolset. And we work very closely with IBM to develop solutions around the IBM applications. So we'll take the IBM applications and we'll create solutions for different industries and add value to those applications. Next slide, please. So I'll hand over to Colm now, who's going to give you a rundown of Planning Analytics.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. As Mark said, my name is Colm Keneally. I work for IBM. I work for IBM in a pre-sales role, so I spend a lot of time talking to customers, talking to them really about their planning processes, their performance management processes. And when I speak to them, clearly a number of issues emerge, a number of kind of insights, challenges, problems that they tell me that they're trying to deal with. And I guess very often they fall into a number of categories, but very often they can fall into the categories of speed, looking to do things quicker, agility, looking to do things more quickly and easily, and being able to do things, just being more agile and adaptable, and also foresight, just getting better insights and a future look from their data. So I will talk about each one of those briefly. So starting with the theme of speed. So when I speak to customers, they're usually looking to fix their planning problems quickly. Now, very often what that means is that they want to start small, maybe by looking at just one area of their business, maybe looking at one process in the business. But then over time, they want to kind of grow that and expand, add more data, deal with more processes, add more users into their environment. I think also that speed sort of implies ease of use of a system or ease of adoption of any system. And customers are looking to automate key reporting and planning cycles, really in large part by reducing the time and the effort that they take to do them. And by speed, I think we can also assume that means the ability to work with very large data sets, very complex data sets, and being able to work with those data sets pretty much in real time. So in the demo, what I will show is how the workspace that we provide in the cloud, as we will see, as well as the Excel, how they help with trying to speed up some of these processes. The second theme is around agility, and there's a number of things here, mainly that talk about responding quickly to changes. being able to modify data, modify structures as needed, as things change in the market, things change within the organization. Agility also means being able to create a model, potentially for a new process, a new part of the business that hadn't been planned for, hadn't been managed before, maybe through a new acquisition, a new initiative, a new launch, that kind of thing. I will talk about how the solution catalog that we provide helps with some of that, and I'll also briefly show some of the capabilities that the solution provides for modifying and changing structures on the fly. The last theme then is foresight, and this is talking about how your organization can use the existing data that it already has. It can use that to look for underlying trends, anomalies, patterns in the data, and apply some of that insight, apply some of that learning to plans, budgets, forecasts, predictions going forward. As well as incorporating external data into models, all of this data should really help customers plan and predict the future much better. So speed, agility, foresight, they're the key themes of the session this morning. And as I move into the demonstration, you will see that one of the key components of the solution is this workspace that I've referred to, which is available on the cloud to end users. And this really addresses the theme of speed. We will see quite a bit of this as we go through the demo, and you'll see how I'm going to use this as my launching pad for pretty much everything that I need to do in terms of my planning and my analytics. And still on the theme of speed, when we talk about model design, I think broadly speaking, there are two approaches to model design. Excuse me. The traditional approach is to have more centrally developed models developed by business professionals, usually finance professionals, people that you would normally think of as super users. These models are typically centrally managed, deployed to all cost centers, all users, all departments as part of a planning process. And this solution supports that approach pretty well. A lot of our customers are already using this approach. But what we are seeing emerge more recently is what we call the business user-led approach. And that tends to be much more distributed across the organization, typically wherever there is a need, not just in the finance team. It would typically be another functional team. So, for example, you might have a marketing department who has to do a promotional plan, and that would then get linked into their campaign planning. You might have an IT department, they would have a requirement to do project and initiative planning, and those plans would further in turn get linked into their staffing and their resources model. And in that scenario, the business user-led approach, the approach that's needed tends to be something that's it's a much easier approach, and that it requires a lot less support from super users. And the IBM Planning Analytics solution provides capabilities for that as well, and it's also available through the cloud. So, and I guess the last point on the speed of theme is the other way that we can help is with the integration that we have with Microsoft Excel. Now, in my experience, Excel is the most popular planning tool out there, despite all of its limitations. And our offering allows you to embrace it rather than just to get rid of it completely. And as you will see towards the end of the demo, this part of the solution gives you full Excel functionality, all of the formatting capabilities, Excel graphing capabilities, using Excel functions on the data. The super users, finance professionals, they can continue working in a familiar interface, but at the same time, they're getting the benefits of a modern, scalable analytics solution underneath. You will see how users can explore and analyze data from lots of different sources using what is pretty much a familiar interface. And what that also allows you to do is to push the analysis capabilities further down into lots of more users in your organization. So on the theme of agility, you will see how easy it is for users to create and customize their own views. So using this workspace, they can create a canvas type view with lots of different visualizations of the data. One of the key things that I'll demonstrate is that, in addition to being able to create views of the data just to look at it, users have full read-write capabilities. And what that means is you can do planning, you can do scenario modeling, you can test assumptions, you can see the impact of different drivers, different scenarios, see how they impact the bottom line and other metrics and outcomes. And you'll see the workspaces, they're sort of like dashboards, and they can be shared across work groups, they can be shared across other users. There's collaboration functionality built in, so people can store the thoughts and comments that they have around the particular process or cycle that they're working on without having to kind of go off and troll through external emails and external files. And as you can see from the slide, access to the data is available both on mobile and on desktop devices. So also around the theme of agility, underneath everything that I've spoken about so far, you've got the powerful Cognos TM1 engine. Now, some of you may have come across it before. It's an in-memory OLAP engine, very scalable, with very strong read-write capabilities, and this really underpins most of what planning analytics does. So it allows for multidimensional analysis of very large data sets in real time, integrating data from multiple places to give you comparative analysis across different versions, different departments. It allows you to do complex multidimensional calculations, analysis of key dimensions such as your products, your customers, analyzing your sales, price volume mix analysis, etc. And as I mentioned, around the theme of agility, we also have the Planning Analytics Solution Catalog. And what this does is to provide a number of out-of-the-box template models. And that allows companies to start planning more quickly, and you can see some of the examples of the range of the models available. So again, providing agility, giving you a fast start to your implementation, a fast start to your planning cycle, and a faster time to value when you invest in planning analytics. The last theme was around foresight. So one of the capabilities within planning analytics is access to IBM Watson Analytics. And this allows you to uncover predictive insights directly from your underlying data. You can then take those insights, apply them to your planning and analysis. It's got lots of capabilities, things such as natural language queries, guided discovery. It lets users really quickly and easily create analysis and visualization based on their own standard business terms. You have lots of visualizations to show you what's important, infographics to help support your decisions and to help you share the information with other users in your organization. It's got capabilities around data preparation, data refinements, data management and analysis, all available out of the box. Very easy for users to work with their data, and also they can trust the data that they're looking at. Okay, so I guess just to summarize before we go into the demo, planning analytics helps to improve planning processes, helps you improve performance management processes by providing capabilities and solutions that give your users speed, agility, and foresight. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the demo. I'm going to start using Planning Analytics Workspace, and as I mentioned, this allows me to work with existing views of data. It allows me to create and customize my own views of the data. So I've got a number of books available to me, and these are just kind of ways of logically organizing and collecting my content together. I'm assuming the role of the Chief Financial Officer, so I'm going to start with a high-level view of the company's performance. And as I've mentioned, the solution provides lots of ways of visualizing data, one of which is maps, so I can see this is a European organization, I can see how they're performing across Europe. It's interactive, so I could look at different versions of the data, see how our actuals are doing, see which countries are performing really well. I can also look at different product groups and see how they're trending over time. Okay, so highly visual, highly interactive, and we'll see more examples of this as we go through the demo. Now, as the CFO, I'm interested in seeing how we're doing in relation to our overall strategy and the metrics that define our strategy. Okay, so here I can see the kind of our key objectives, which are kind of meeting the plan as stated to the markets. I can see most of our objectives are green, which means they're doing okay, but a couple of them are red. So looking at our objective to grow profitability, not doing so well there. And it looks like that's been impacted by our ability to, to grow our revenue. And I guess a key point about this is this ability to capture and display metrics or KPIs. This is an integrated part of the solution, not a separate module. So what I'd like to do is to just get a better understanding of the issue with sales performance. And there's a number of ways I can do this. You know, I could work with existing views of the data, slice and dice the information to get what I want. But I could equally create a view of the data just by asking a question. So I'm really interested in finding out, I want to see what our actual revenue by product is. So up here, I can type in actual revenue by product. What that does is it goes off and it looks at my data and it says, okay, well, based on those terms, there's a number of views which match that kind of particular question that you've asked. Yeah. And it sorts them in order of relevance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the first one that it finds. And it gives me a very simple view of the data. Say my actual revenue is 73.543 million by product. I can then split that out by expanding and collapsing on the product view of the data. Okay, so very simple for me to do that. I didn't have to go off and kind of try and find the data from lots of other views or lots of other reports. It understood the terms that I was looking for and gave me the best match. And this is a really good starting point, you know, and having got that kind of starting point, you know, as an end user, I can now customize this to get exactly the view that I want. So for example, I might want to see the product split in the rows. And because I've got a plus sign beside it, I can see that I can expand and collapse and see how that number is made up. So again, to begin with, it's quite a simple view, but I want to make some changes to that. And I would reiterate the point that I'm doing this as an end user. I don't need to be an administrator to customize the view of the data. So behind the scenes, there's actually other ways of analyzing this data. It's made up by channel, it's made up by organizational elements, months, etc. So I'm just going to add those into my view here. And I think what might be interesting for this is if I were to look at, let's say, the data over time, I can drag my months into the rows of this particular view. And it gives me the full hierarchy of months rolling up into quarters, rolling up into full years. But really, I just want to see it at the months level. And I can choose that particular view of the data from the drop-down. The other thing which might be quite interesting is to try and understand how we're doing by our different product groups. So I'm going to drag that into the columns, and I can see a breakdown of each one of those. And it's worth pointing out that, you know, we've got further levels of detail here, and I can expand and collapse and look at individual information just by clicking on the plus sign. Now, because I'm looking at data over time, I always find that one useful way to visualize this is to look at this maybe graphically. And then when I click on the visualization option, this gives me the choice of visualizations available to me. And I think looking at data over time, a line chart is always a useful way of doing it. Okay, so it changes the view to a line chart. I might want to get further information underneath one of these. So I might be interested in our performance of our phones product, and I can drill down on that and I can see how 3G models are doing in relation to 4G models, etc. And what I can see here is that our 3G models are tailing off from kind of halfway through the year as you'd expect. And I've seen a bit of an increase around 4G models, but maybe not as much as I would have liked. So that might give me some clues as to what the issue around growing revenue is. Okay. And at this point, it's just worth doing a quick recap of what we've seen so far. So using just my browser, I've started with you know, a highly visual workspace with map visualizations, KPIs, metrics. To get further analysis, I've used natural language commands to create a view, which as an end user, I then customize myself. But now what I want to do is I want to look at some of the planning capabilities that are available to me. So in my workspace, I've got an area called targets, which again is blank quite deliberately. But what I want to do is to bring in a view of our targets, because I know I've got this view already available to me. So that's another way that we can use these natural language commands. And the first one it finds is exactly the one that I want to work with. And at the moment, it's looking at the organizational elements in the countries in the rows. I could slice and dice it to more of a profit and loss view. But actually, what I want is the organizational view. Right now, the targets that we're asking people to achieve are the same as what we did last year. And really, as an organization, we're looking to grow our revenue. So what I want to do is to set an overall target of 100 million at the total company level, and then I want that to cascade down into all the individual countries on the pro rata basis. Now, what you've seen there is just one example of the many shortcut commands available to me, and I think that really addresses some of the capabilities and it addresses the theme of agility. Just makes it much more quick and easy for me to do my planning. We can spend a lot of time just on shortcut commands. There's lots of other functionality available, such as holding individual elements, growing data over time, etc. But that's a really good example of some of the read-write capabilities using some of the commands. Now, what this translates to is, having set 100 million for the total company, that translates into a target for the UK of just over 11.4 million. Okay. Now, having set high-level targets, let's have a quick look at how our managers can try, how they can plan to try and meet or exceed these targets. And again, within the same workspace, I can look at the current workflow status of our budget process. So when our customers implement planning analytics, they're looking to move to or improve a number of things in their organization. And I think two of these are, they're looking to do what we call high frequency planning and also high participation planning. And I think that just really means they're looking to do it more often, possibly quarterly, monthly, maybe even weekly for some retail organizations. And they're also looking to involve more people in the process. In other words, those people who have budget accountability, budget ownership. And the solution helps with those high frequency and high participation in a number of ways. And the first one is the workflow. So let's kind of just talk through that very quickly. So, if we look at this model, so if we look at Western Europe, we can see that, Western Europe is incomplete because if we look at the submission for Ireland, that hasn't been started yet. And we would say, compare that to the spreadsheet way of doing things where you have a person sets up templates and emails them out to lots of people, wait for them to come back. And that's a very inefficient way of working, because you've no real visibility into where people are in the process. Yeah, but with this, you can see immediately where people are in the process. But what's interesting as well is the person who's responsible for collating the plan for Western Europe can see who's holding up the process. Yeah. So what that means is, the person in Ireland knows that their boss knows they're holding up the process, and typically they will respond more quickly to their boss being upset than they would somebody in central finance. And just this visibility into the planning process can really speed up the planning cycle time. The other thing that we can see is we've got certain nodes such as France, which is work in progress. And not only is it work in progress, but as you can see, it's offline. So the person who's doing the planning for France has downloaded the data onto their PC. They're working on it while they're traveling. And when they've next got a connection, they can submit that back up. Okay. And then if we look further down the hierarchy, we can see Southern Europe. We can see that they've all been locked. And that means that they are locked to the end users. If they want to make any changes, their plan, that needs to be approved. The plan needs to be unlocked for them by an authorized user, their manager, or an administrator. Just stops you having multiple versions of the plan, making sure that you're working with one version of the truth. Okay. And the second way that we help with reducing planning cycle times is this concept of what we have is instant aggregation. So whenever any of these countries or cost centers saves or submits their plan, the data is automatically aggregated all the way up the hierarchy with no intervention from the center. And what that means is because you've got data being aggregated, being reviewed instantly, you've got lots of lower level iterations happening as you go through a planning cycle. The data tends to come through a lot quicker and the quality tends to be a lot higher. Okay, so that's a little bit on high frequency, high participation planning, which this solution supports. From here, if I go in, I can open up the submission for the UK and I can see the current details of the UK budget submission. Now, I've got a couple of useful summaries to help me. So one of them is the plan metrics. So I can see that the current budget submission is falling short because the new target of 11.4 million is higher than what they're currently planning for. If I want a more detailed view, I can look at, for example, a profit and loss view. And I can see that information flowing through. I can see how the detail of all of their revenue, all of their costs, all of their marketing information is broken down. And I can see how that's looking and if it's meeting or exceeding targets. So to try and make up for this shortfall, looking at this kind of budget metric, there's a number of ways I can fix this. So I could go and look at our existing products that we sell, and I could plan and I could sell more of those. But actually, in this case, what I want to do is I want to sell a product that doesn't exist currently in our planning environment. And also, before I do that, what I want to do is have the ability to potentially test the impact of different scenarios. So I'm going to create a personal scenario, and I'm going to call it new 4G product. Yeah, so what I mean by a personal scenario, the data is only visible to me to begin with, and I can test the impact of different assumptions with no one looking over my shoulder. So I'm going to create a new 4G product, and I'm going to have a 64 gigabytes 4G phone. Okay, and that's going to roll up into the 4G smartphones place in our hierarchy. I'm going to sell 2,000 units. But I think realistically, I'm not going to be able to launch this until August. Okay, and I think a comparative product to use as a basis for its sales might be the 16 gig model. Okay, so I'm ready to add this product into the hierarchy, and to see the impact of that, well, I can do that in a number of ways. I can go and look at the detail of my sales plan, and I can now see that I'm looking. In terms of my 4G smartphones, I've got this new item rolling up. And also, if I now go to my profit and loss, I can see the impact of that, and that would take me up to nearly 12 million in terms of my plan, thereby exceeding my target. Okay. Now, it's worth pointing out that what I did may not look that substantial, but I think what happened was quite important. I didn't just add some data; I made a structural change to our overall model in real time. And that will propagate throughout every aspect of the solution, all of my models, all of my reports. I didn't have to ask the IT department to go back, update our ERP system. I didn't have to shut the planning system down, so there's minimal disruption. Now, if I'm happy with these figures, what I can do is I can commit this data. So my personal scenario now becomes my main scenario. And if I'm happy with my submission, I can submit my plan. And that will then lock the plan and then update my workflow status to indicate that that plan is finished. And I guess the other way to visualize the impact of having made that change is if I come back to my area where I was doing some analysis, and when I was looking at my phones data over here, if I switch that to the budget version, so again, as a user, I can change the view of the data to say, well, get rid of actuals, do it for budget. How does that look? And then when I drill down on my 4G smartphones, I can see the data for that model coming through, and I can see the impact of the information happening, the impact from August onwards. Okay, so far we have seen how everything can be achieved using the web browser. But I think just to kind of finish off, now would be a good time to look at our integration with Microsoft Office and in particular Excel. And I think this interface gives you it's a really good way of either doing ad hoc analysis on the data or equally creating highly formatted reports. So when I connect to my cloud server, I choose the data set I want to work with. In this case, I'm going to work with the income statements. Now, there's a number of ways you can start to work with this data. The easiest way is to start with a blank crosstab and then populate it with an existing view of the data that's already been created. So I'm just going to replace the crosstab with the income statement view. Okay. So, this is a good starting point. It turns out it's not exactly what I wanted. A couple of things I'd like to change. This view is sliced on the UK, but I want to see it for the total company. Yeah. And it's worth pointing out, hopefully what you'll have seen there is whenever I make a change, so I'm going to now drag my versions into the columns. Whenever I make a change, I get very, very quick response because this is optimized for performance over the cloud. So I'm connecting to a server about 100 miles away in London, but I'm still getting almost instantaneous response whenever I change this particular view. So I can slice and dice this view to get something which is more meaningful. If I wanted to create a report, a really good way of doing this is to convert this to formulas onto a new sheet. And then what I can do is start to use, standard Excel functionality to make this look like, a better looking report. So for example, I don't like these kind of color schemes. I don't like the gray background. I can change that very quickly. I can start to add in bolding, and I can start to add in standard Excel formatting, or I can add in conditional formatting. Yeah. So I've got that quick connection to the data from the underlying server in the cloud, and I've got the ability to create formatted reports using Excel capabilities. And clearly I could spend a lot more time formatting this, but once I've got to something that I'm happy with and something I want to use later and something that I want to share with other users, I can then publish this up onto my server, save it into a particular folder, give it a name, call it webinar, and publish it. And then potentially I could go back to my workspace in the cloud. I could go back to my web browser and interact with this view of the data that I've just created in a matter of minutes. So I've got 1 eye on the clock, and we're getting near time. I've kind of covered everything I wanted to say: speed, agility, and foresight using planning analytics, the ability to work with data, read-write capabilities using both the web browser and Excel. And that's everything I wanted to say. So I think, Mark, you just wanted to wrap up quickly in terms of the slides.
Yeah, thanks very much, Colm, for that very good presentation. From a HAYNE point of view, I think that IBM sell themselves a bit short here. They talk about speed, agility, and foresight, but we really look upon 6 real attributes here. We've got the speed, agility, and foresight that Colm talked about. We've also got collaboration, control, and reliability. That collaboration around quickly deploying this to multiple users in the organization, and really being able to get that budgeting and forecasting process deployed throughout the organization, which with Excel we sometimes struggle with. Control is all around that, control around the versions and what is going on with that budgeting and forecasting process at the period end. And reliability around the fact that we've now got an application which really is one version of the truth. We've got budgets, we've got actuals, and we've also got a model which we're controlling centrally but deploying out through the organization. So we see 3 further attributes beyond the speed, agility, and foresight. If you just click on, please, Colm. And as well as being budgeting, forecasting, and planning, and I think it's perhaps a little bit unfortunate that we call it IBM Planning Analytics, because what it disguises is the fact that we've got great ability to do data analysis and visualization, all within the same tool. And with that, we've got 3 attributes we look at. We've got self-service, the ability to self-serve or at least be self-sufficient from a user point of view, which takes the pressure off the Office of Finance, who are often asked to supply this kind of information. We've got this visualization, the capability to make things look sexy, a bit of sex and sizzle. And we've also got the compatibility around the other Office of Finance tools that we all use, i.e. Excel, which which we'll find very difficult to get rid of from the Office of Finance. At the end of the day, we may as well embrace it and use it to its best capability. So you just go on to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, yep. So, and at the end of the day, this uses that proven industry-leading TM1 engine, which has been around for a long time and has got great strength. Okay, sorry, next slide, Tom. So what does this really mean for the Office of Finance? Well, it allows us to combine financial and operational models seamlessly into a single consistent view, which we again struggle with Excel. We've now got a connected budgeting, planning and forecast process, which can improve the efficiency and accuracy within the Office of Finance. And it's also providing us through that visualization, the ability to have a self-service platform for data analysis. So we're really empowering the business user and taking the pressure off the Office of Finance. So all of those things are very positive. So from a HAYNE point of view, we think this is a fantastic step forward in terms of development, and very much looking forward to working a lot with IBM Cognos Planning Analytics in the future.